Hi, and welcome everybody to another edition of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. I should say, welcome to another week, as it's Monday, May the 22nd. Like every Monday, I am joined by Mr. Doug Upstone of DocSports.com, one of the finest handicappers you'll find anywhere on the internet. Doug, how was your weekend, my friend?
Well, in terms of sports betting, not bad. Had a really nice weekend with baseball altogether. NHL only had one play, but that didn't happen well in overtime, so that wasn't so great. And the NBA, it was a little bit of a mixed bag, but came back with I had the Lakers on. That would have been Saturday. That was incorrect, but I did have the over last night, which I don't know if it was lucky, but it was at worst it was fortunate. Okay,
Yeah.
so that was good. So, but still happy with that. 16-10 in the NBA, and a strong record long term. So Ross, it was all good. And hey, anytime we get the weekend around, never a bad thing, right?
Buddy, 128 to 102 when the total was 214.5 is not lucky.
Well, no, the scoring 74 points in the fourth quarter, that was lucky.
Okay. But even having said that, yeah, well, I got you. Anyway, you won. That's all that matters. We're not looking for style points. We've talked about
like you said, no style points for that one. Just take it and be happy.
Well, the PGA just finalized in my neck of the woods up here in Rochester, New York on Sunday. And what was your take on? I know you're a big PGA guy, and especially when there's not a lot of sports going on. We're getting pretty limited right now between baseball and an abbreviated NBA basketball schedule with only four teams left in the NHL. So what'd you think, Doug?
Kopka, I'm not going to get into the whole live thing. I'll just say this is that, congratulations to him. Okay. I mean, the guy is one of the best big tournament players. Okay. He has proven that throughout his entire career. Okay. That he is. Whether you want to give him credit for going to live or not, the reason he went to live, and which he fully explained previously, is that his career was trending downward because he was injured, and he was injured a lot. So he was, he was looking out for his family and for himself from that standpoint. Now he's healthy, and now he's back to being one of the top golfers there is in the world. So that's absolutely fantastic. But good for him on that. But the story we just talked about, Michael Block. Wow, what a great story. 46 years old. Guy's a stick because he's qualified before to get in this. But to have what happened, over the weekend, was very close to finishing in the top 10, finished tied for 15th, which gets him in, next year.
Yeah.
It reminded me of what is it, Caddyshack with the priest, right? I mean, kind of the same thing, to where everything that could go your way did. Okay. And it was fantastic. It was fun. He was an affable guy, also, and very humbled by the experience that he had. And then, last night getting a call that he's going to be able to play this week, and he had to call his boss in order to, his boss was going to give it to him, but he had to get the okay that he could go play next week. So yeah, fantastic story. So it was a really good weekend for the sport of golf, just overall. And for him, wow, a dream come true.
Absolutely. A tournament, a club pro out of California, Northern California. So it's always nice. He has, like Doug said, he had qualified for several PGA events in the past, but it's the first time he ever made the cut, know. And then, he finishes in the top 15 with a +1. It shows you how tough that course is. Well,
the course was great. I loved how it was set up.
Yeah, the course, again, was tough, but in fairness to some of the golfers, the weather conditions, other than Sunday, were not our ideal, Doug, Okay. So,
well, you know what? That's how real people play golf. So I have zero pity for any PGA professional who would ever complain about the weather, because that's how real people play. And that's how they grew up playing for the most part, with a few exceptions. But no, so it was a fair test of golf. I love that they moved the PGA from August into this month, because I think it makes it a better event. I think it makes it more interesting. People are around to watch it. So yeah, I big fan of that. And on a personal note, had Patrick Cantley for a top 10 and a top 20. So I'll take that as well.
Very good. There you go. How about this NBA and NHL playoffs? Folks, we are going to be discussing baseball today, by the way. I should have mentioned that at the top. Excuse me for not doing so, but I'm going to be looking at the San Francisco, Minnesota game. And Doug is going to be touching upon
Texas and Pittsburgh.
Texas and Pittsburgh. And both of those games go tomorrow. We're taping 24 hours in advance. Remember, today's the 22nd, Monday. These games are for Tuesday the 23rd. So those lines we'll give out on the show are subject to change depending on when you view the video. Anyway, Doug, getting back to the NHL and the NBA, I don't know. I'm not shocked that Denver is winning the series, and even at 3-0. I like the Lakers in the series at plus 120. And after watching 1.5 games, you could tell Denver is just the far superior team, and I'm shocked by that. But I thought the Lakers would give them a better run. But again, we're talking a number 1 seed against a number 7 seed, and the number 1 seed's up 3-0. Okay. And I could understand all that. What shocks me is the Miami-Boston series. On a couple notes, Doug. First of all, I really like Boston a lot to win it all, as a matter of fact. And I mentioned that several times. And boy, oh boy, that's looking like a terrible, terrible projection at this point. And it happens, okay? That's why I hate futures bets. And that's why when I say I make a futures bet, it's always much smaller, Doug, than my average daily bet I'll make on a point spread or money line, if that makes sense. So this way, if you want to get off that team and you're not married to them to the series, it's at minimal loss. In any event, Boston being down 3-0, losing the first 2 at home, being in a desperate and urgent mode on the road yesterday. And Doug, they just didn't show up. Not only didn't they show up, they quit. They quit. I mean, I don't know what other way to put it. They quit. All 5 starters. Well, I should take that back. Marcus Smart did finish the game, but the 3 key starters there in Al Horford and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, all set for the fourth quarter, Doug, and rightfully so. I don't blame them. And then the press conference after with the coach, this guy Joe Mazzulla, if I'm a Celtics fan, he does not bode well for confidence. I mean, he's very he's a pacifist, and his answers are almost on the side of non-confrontational. So it's not like he wants any fights. He wants to take all the onus responsibility, and it's all on him and not the players. Well, okay. Now that you're done playing the martyr role, explain to me why you haven't made the adjustments you should during the game. Anyway, go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, no, I mean, as far as the coach goes, I mean, he has been outcoached. Okay, nobody's going to deny that. But but he was also thrust into a situation he's never been before. Okay, and almost anyone in that situation is going to struggle. Okay, I mean, it takes experience, especially in the NBA, to get to the highest levels, whether it be a player or whether it be a coach. Sure, there's been some examples of some guys who are fortunate to get there, but usually, if you look back at their history in terms of how or where they coached, there's a reason that happened. So from that standpoint, but I thought if he wanted to fall on the sword, that's up to him. But you know what? Nobody believed it, because if you're down 0-2, okay, and you have to win the game, okay, you show up. And they started the game literally bitching and complaining about every single call. That's all they did. And you could see right then and there that they were beat. And then, so I mean, as far as the coach, I think he still wants to be the coach, whether he'll get the opportunity or not. I don't know. I'm not Brad Stevens, but I think he did the right thing, because I think all those guys were shocked that they didn't play. Okay, in the fourth quarter, and rightfully so. I think it was the right move. Is it a weird time to send a message? Absolutely, it was. But you know what? I think it was the right time it was also the right thing to do. They're not going to win the series, and they can talk all they want. I saw Harford. Hey, we're down 3-0, and no team's ever done it. But hey, we're still confident. It's like, please give me a break.
Yeah,
they're not stupid, from that standpoint. Spoelstra they are so prepared literally here for every moment. And I just thought it was brilliant yesterday how they changed their defense completely from the first two games, because they guarded the 3-point line the first two games. All of a sudden, they basically took away the confidence of Boston. And they just start, if you went inside the arc, they double teamed almost everybody because they knew Boston would only pass the ball out as opposed to having cutters going to the basket. And because they didn't do that, that was the game. Okay.
Yeah.
And then their defense just completely fell apart after that. So good for them. Your point on the Denver, I remember this from a few years ago when Murray, before he got hurt in the playoffs, okay, and they were on a roll. Jamal Murray was Devin Booker out of Kentucky before Devin Booker was at Kentucky. Right. Jamal Murray was the same guy. Okay. And now he is 100% healthy. He's 100% confident, and he is the reason why this team is going to the finals with an excellent chance to win it all.
Yeah, he's become a huge complementary piece. We were talking about a one-man show for Denver, but you know what? This Jamal Murray, when he's healthy and when he's right, he's one of the best playoff performers we have in this league right now. I know Jimmy Butler has been terrific, all right?
Oh, yeah.
And the Joker's still been terrific. But remember,
Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah, Michael Porter Jr. has been terrific. So a lot of key role players there for Denver have really stepped up. And the other thing is too is what was I going to say about what player were we on initially?
Talk about Jamal Murray.
Jamal Murray, yeah, back in the bubble a couple years ago. I mean, he was putting up 35 and 40 shots regularly. So people forget that. So, okay, there's the NBA, and we got a game going on tonight. I don't know if you'll get it in time, but I do have a pick up in game 4 of that Denver and Lakers series, a winning side. Tomorrow will be game 4 of the Miami and Boston series. Miami with a chance to close them out at home. Really, I'm shocked by the fact, that this is maybe the first time ever in the NBA storied history that 2 conference finals ended up 4-0, both sweeps. I mean, I say I'm shocked by the 3-0 in the Denver series, but both of these series, really, you can make a case of being very surprised. NHL, Doug, same sort of scenario, other than the fact that those series are 2-0. Florida, I don't know. It's got to be their year. They knocked off Carolina the first 2 games of the conference final on the road, both in overtime. Las Vegas pulls off an overtime. I'm sorry, Las Vegas is the one that won both games in overtime, right, Doug?
Both teams won both games in overtime.
Both teams won both games in overtime. So there you go. I mean, fine line between being up 2-0 and down 2-0, Doug.
Yeah, I mean, it's razor thin, from that standpoint. And, it's just a matter of just literally making one play. And the one thing now, Ross, you and I don't know if you remember this, and unfortunately, I have to say this, some of the older people watching this might recall this, but Florida reminds me of this because for whatever reason, I never forgot it. The 1979 New York Rangers, John Davidson in goal. Okay. They were an ordinary team most of the season, but they had a couple of star players. Ron Duguay comes to mind. I forget the other one, but what can happen in the NHL, if you get a hot goalie and you get a couple of guys who are putting the puck in the back of the net, you can go a long ways. I mean, the Rangers, just like Florida, were never given any consideration to get to where they did, but yet they did. Okay. Yeah. From that standpoint, they got to the finals. They lost in the finals. I think it was in 6 games, but that's what I'm saying.
They lost to Montreal when they were going through all that championship run.
Right. And so, so it reminds me very much of that. So, it's literally one play. Okay. I mean, everybody's one play away from being, having a different record than what they have currently. So good for Florida. Vegas got the job done. Florida's in a more advantageous position. I think Carolina could still actually, I'm sorry, not Carolina. I think Dallas could still do something. What's weird though, here's a weird stat on, from a betting standpoint on Carolina, is that the last 3 years, Carolina at home in the first 2 rounds has not lost a game. In the conference finals, They're 0-6 the last 3 years.
Wow. Wow.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it's a difference between getting to a Stanley Cup final and winning a Stanley Cup and playing golf in late May. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
But a Ron Duguay. We get a Ron Duguay voice out for us. Thank you, Doug. Ron Duguay now is the current boyfriend of who, Doug?
I actually forget. It was they were a long time ago though, right?
No, but right now.
Right now. Okay. No, I don't know who that is.
Governor Sarah Palin of Alaska.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I did not know that. Okay. Because he was married. He had a supermodel girlfriend.
Yes.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
I remember that, but I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. See, Ross got me on that one. See, he's up to date. He's reading all those different magazines and things online, TMZ,
all the gossip stuff,
All the guy. There's our guy Ross.
You're hosting a talk show. You better have some kind of stuff you could bring up on occasion that's out of the ordinary and thinking out of the box. So there you go.
Absolutely. You got
all right. Let's go with our baseball picks, Doug. And we're going to be looking at your game first, Texas and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh still a tad above 500 as I recollect. But far cry from that start they had. I believe they started 21-8, if I'm not mistaken, or 20-8. Now they're hovering around 500. And the Texas Rangers, they just continue to hit and continue to win. And they're flying under the radar, Doug, because and then when you have a pitcher like Nathan Eovaldi, who I know you're not crazy about, but he's really overperforming this year and putting together a nice early season anyway.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. Now, the Texas Rangers just swept Colorado. They, as well as Tampa Bay has played, Texas is 3 games behind Tampa Bay in the American League. Okay. Wow. I mean, that's just crazy to think about. Now they're 13-9 on the road. Okay. So they're going to start a 3-city Eastern trip, but lead the majors in scoring at 6.5 runs per game. And it's a legitimate offense across the board. Is that they're in the top 5 in all the major categories. They're not though real high up in home runs, and they kind of play, let's just call it, and I'm not saying this, I think this does have something with the manager, an old school way with Bruce Bochy as their manager, because they play a lot of first to third baseball. So what do I mean by that? Is they get a couple guys on base and they're just looking to keep going around on the loop. Okay. Base hit, base hit, base hit. And the runs just keep coming around, going first to third. And so that is a very deflating method for the opposing team to see that. Okay. Yeah, the home run can be a shocker, but when that happens to you, that's really tough to come back from. Now, Pittsburgh, they're in a death spiral, Ross, right now. 4-14, okay, in their last 18. That has given away their start. Now they're asking about their record. They're 24-22. Pirates have had a couple of offensive outbursts in this streak, but not much. Okay. In fact, they've scored in those 18 games, they've scored 3 runs or less 15 times. Wow. Right. So that's not very good, obviously. So you mentioned Nathan Eovaldi. He's going to face Rich Hill. Okay. So Eovaldi had his streak snapped. He had 3 straight starts of at least 8 innings that were all shutouts. They gave up 3 runs last week against Atlanta, but still on the year, 2.83 ERA. 6-1 strikeout to walk ratio, and teams are batting .227 against him. Now, Eovaldi's 33. All right. Rich Hill is a whole decade older than him. Okay. From that standpoint, but he's a very serviceable number 5 starter. Okay. 3.81 ERA. He doesn't overwhelm anybody. He's I guess you have to put the cliche word in. He's crafty because he's left-handed from that standpoint. But here's the thing. Going up against the Texas offense, Texas is number 1 in baseball against left-handed starting pitchers, the ones that start the game. They're averaging 7.9 runs per game, far and away the best in baseball. Hill last year faced the Texas twice, and in those 2 games, 10 innings pitched, 7 runs allowed. Not great. Eovaldi, I think he can contain this Bucks offense. That's obviously very weak. And right now, Ross, his whip is 0.99. And when Pittsburgh is facing an American League pitcher that has a whip of 1.30 or lower, they are 2-17. Give me Texas to round up the Pirates in this one as minus 150 favorites on the money line, which I think could go higher. But right now, as we're doing this, give me minus 150 on Texas to get the job done Tuesday night.
There you go. Texas minus 150. I actually had 140 just before we came on the air. So you want to shop your lines. Yep. But there could be some 150s out there. I just looked at the consensus line over at Wager Talk, and it was 140. So we'll go with 140, Doug. And again, folks, you always have that option if it gets into 160, 170 range, which, like Doug just alluded to, it's quite possibly that can happen. Then entertain the going on the run line rather than lay that big a price. Again, there's ways around that when you get a big money line favorite like that. I like to say is if you usually bet to win $100, just risk $100 on a play like a 160, 170. That's one way to look at it. Other people say, no, if I hit 80% of these 160 and above, it's not going to matter. It's a lot easier said than done. So money strategy, money management is key, folks, especially when we're talking about money line betting and totals betting. All right, let me take a look at my game, which is San Francisco at Minnesota. Right now, Minnesota is a 140 favorite and 7.5. Maybe that's where I got the 140 from, Doug. Maybe San Francisco is minus 150. My apology. Right now, Alex Cobb is a slated starter for the San Francisco Giants. He's seen his last 6 starts all go under the total, and his 147 ERA during those outings had a lot to do with those low-scoring affairs. And better yet, Cobb averaged over 6 innings pitched per start during those 6 outings. The much maligned San Francisco bullpen, who's been terrible for most of the year, all of a sudden they've pitched awfully well over the last 7 games. During that course of time, their ERA is somewhere in the 2 range, about 161. A 161 ERA, 107 whip as a staff. This also is a Minnesota team that will be starting Sonny Gray. And Sonny Gray has been terrific this year. 9 starts, a 164 ERA, a 116 whip. Seems like, Doug, since he moved from the New York Yankees, he's been the pitcher we all thought he was going to be in New York. Some guys just can't handle the bright lights in New York, apparently. And the Minnesota bullpen's been solid all year long, and especially so at home, where they not an overpowering ERA, but a 3.42 ERA as a staff is pretty good. You could win a lot of games doing that. And since 2021, the Minnesota Twins are 12-2 to the under when facing a National League team like the San Francisco Giants that has a team batting average of 245 or less. And right now the Giants are at 241. Doug, I'm going with San Francisco and Minnesota to go under the total of 7.5.
Yeah, and I think what's going to help that is also Cobb was originally, this was late Sunday afternoon. He was supposed to pitch on Monday. So they gave him an extra day's rest, and they went with the bullpen game instead for Monday. So, with a guy, it's a little bit older, that typically benefits him. So I think that's a good choice. And, Sonny Gray, he's a really good play now, the first half of the year. Maybe he was not a big guy. I want to say 6 feet, maybe 195, something like that. And, he tends to wear down as the season goes along. But early in the year, as we've seen the last few years, he can be quite effective, and he's very comfortable, pitching with this team. And so, I like the idea of going under on that. And actually myself, last night, I actually bet the under for the first 5 innings with Cobb and Ober pitching on Monday until they pulled him out. So, so I'm definitely a fan of the under in this particular case.
All right. It sounds good to me. And, the San Francisco Giants have been a good power team all year, too. They've hit 65 home runs, averaging 1.4 home runs per game, which 1.25 or greater is really good.
Yes.
But 1.4 is tremendous. However, they've only hit 4 home runs in their last 7 games. So they've slowed down a bit in that regard. So another keynote when it comes to the total in this game.
And I'll add one more thing
Sure.
to your point there, because I just happened to think of this. I looked this up. Going into yesterday, which was Sunday, is had both teams were in the top 7 in home runs per game, and they were also in the 2 of the 3 worst for striking out.
Yeah.
So in terms of unders, okay, that's another benefit for taking under here is both these teams batters strike out a ton, okay,
Yeah.
each and every night.
Yeah, and it's hit or miss with them, literally.
Literally,
So, yeah, exactly. So unlike what you just alluded to when talking about Texas, how they don't hit a ton of home runs, they just keep moving from station to station, pushing runs across, getting multiple hits. I don't know, Doug. I mean, to do what Texas does as compared to some other teams, I just don't think power ever leaves you, but to hit and score at the rate that Texas is right now, I just think it's unsustainable. I'm not saying that they won't be a playoff club. I'm not saying they won't win the AL West, but they're putting up some monster offensive numbers right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those things to this point, and this happens, we see it every year where some teams just, they're fully confident and they just keep it going. Now, do I think Tampa Bay and them are going to both end up scoring over 6 runs per game on the season? No, of course not. Okay, that's a real rarity in baseball in any season. But it is a good offense, and that's one of the things I like about it. When you're less home run dependent, you also then you have fewer bad slumps, because if when you're just playing that kind of baseball. San Francisco now, I think Tampa Bay is better than San Francisco offensively, but San Francisco is definitely home run oriented. Okay, that's the nature of their play. That how the analytics are working. That's how they swing the bats, as opposed to, like I said, with Texas. More of line drive type hitting. And when you get in that mode, okay, and the one team I always remember, this was the Angels when they won the World Series. What was that, like 2002 or something like that? But then they had Garrett Anderson. They had a host of guys, but they had like 6 or 7 guys. And I remember I saw them in a series in Milwaukee when I was living there, and I went to 2 different games. And I mean, what I was talking about, in fact, if you remember, here's something for everybody. Here I'm going off the deep end here, but remember the old baseball game that you would play machine, and had the pitcher, the ball came out where the pitcher was. It was like a little metal ball, and it had the runners that were, they were like hopping instead of. That's how they moved around the bases. They would hop around the bases, and that game. And I was pretty good at that game years ago. And that's all I did was hit singles. I would intentionally try and hit because there was a little thing you hit to get singles. So all of this it looked like bunnies going around the bases all the time, and that's why that style of baseball always has appealed to me. Just having seen the Angels play it. And obviously that's how the game was more played years ago also, but it's kind of fun to see again a team like Texas playing like that.
Yeah, Mike Scioscia days.
Yes,
get them on, get them over, get them in.
That was Troy Gloss. There's another one, David Eckstein.
Yep.
All of a sudden, the floodgates have opened, Ross.
There you go. Anyway, so Doug likes Texas minus 150 over Pittsburgh on Tuesday, May the 23rd. I like the Minnesota Twins and the San Francisco Giants to go under the total of 7.5. Those are our 2 free picks, which takes me to this. Doug, tell the folks what you may have coming up this week and a brief history of how you've been doing of late.
Absolutely. So like yourself, Russ, I got to play tonight. It's on the NBA game tonight. It's a 5-unit play. It's a best bet. And so 16-10 run, 46-31 long-term NBA going back, 13 weeks on that. So just nice and consistent going across the board. Major League Baseball coming off a couple of winning days, okay, on there. So again, trying to just get that momentum going. It's close. I can feel it. And it's right there. Hockey been up and down a little bit of late, primarily because with overtime losses has been the hindrance there. I'm not going to dwell on that. But props, MLB props in particular, I'm focusing on 2 areas: pitchers and series. Okay, from that standpoint, and I've hit 3 of my last 4, Russ. So got another one actually going today, and I'm doing props at least 5 days a week right now. So yeah, got some interesting and fun things going on. It's kind of fun to do stuff like that too with the prop bets.
Well, you got to break it up a little bit, and that's the way of the world right now. It's the prop bets have been very popular, especially amongst the younger demographic, which most people are in the younger demographic when you compare them to us. But these are the types of things we never used to address back in the old days because there was no market for it. And you try to call a old Italian local bookie here and say, "Hey, I want to bet a prop." What's in a prop?
Yeah. Go get yourself a hat, kid.
Stop at a horse shit. Who do you like? That's what you would hear. But in any event, you can find me at rbwins.com. You can find Doug at docsports.com. You heard all the good stuff he's got going on and how he's been doing of late. And he is a winner on a consistent basis, not only in basketball and hockey and all sports, folks. So when you ask guys like me and Doug what our favorite sport is, we may say what our favorite sport is as a fan, but we don't have favorite sports when it comes to handicapping. Everything we do, we like to think we do equally as well. Sometimes we have a good year in a specific sport and not so good in others, and it flips around once in a while too, right, Doug?
Absolutely. No, that's the thing is that, and then you might like a team, but you don't get married to them. Like I can tell you this year, I played against the Cubs plenty this year already. So from that standpoint, and made some good money for people as well.
I went against the Yankees last week and Toronto beat them 4-3. So that soured me on going against my team. But in any event, I'll do it in baseball over 162 games schedule. Oh, yeah. I have, that's one thing. But anyway, without getting into that, my NBA playoffs, I lost Friday, I lost Saturday, and I lost Sunday. Folks, I always beat on my chest when I win. I'm telling you the way it is. I lost 3 games. I lost them badly. I wasn't close. That happens. Nobody chased me down the aisle to say, "Ross, you bet $1,000 on Boston last night. You laid $1,500 to win $1,000 on the money line. It was horrible. They didn't show up. They lost by 26. We'd like you to give us another $1,000. That just doesn't happen, folks. It's done. It's over with. It's a bad loss. All right, so we move on. Now, even with those 3 losses, 34-21 in the NBA postseason in 2023 since it began, and dime bettors who were up over $14,000 going into the weekend are now up $10,300. All right, still pretty good. And, NBA runs still nice, 17-8 the last 25, 7-3 the last 10. So despite those 3 losses, don't get carried away with what just happened recently. I'm going to get you up to $15,000 to $17,000 before it's said and done, before this NBA playoffs are complete. And that's for dime bettors. Now, if you don't bet a dime, that's okay. I'm just using increments, and you prorate it according to what you play. Nobody's telling you to bet over your head. I know it sounds alluring. It's not alluring when you lose $4,000 over the weekend buying a dime, playing a dime. So it's proper money management, folks. Very important. Doug, until the next time, which will be next Thursday, when we're talking more baseball, I will hope you have a great week and continue to knock them dead. I'll be back tomorrow morning with Jesse Shule and Sean Higgs. We'll be discussing Game 2 of the NBA Eastern Conference Finals between the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics. And we'll be on the rest of the week, but we're sort of in limbo with the schedule with these series up 3-0, both series being 3-0 in the NBA. So until then, folks, I'd like to wish each and every one of you all the very best. Don't forget, give us a likes, folks. If you have not subscribed, real easy. That WC button you'll see on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, that stands for Winner's Circle. Click on that, hit the subscribe button, and then when you're there in your YouTube settings, make sure you hit the alerts bell, and you'll be notified immediately upon any of our Winner's Circle podcasts going up on this sports betting channel. Till the next time, take care and God bless.